It is November 9th, 1944, deep within the shadowed vaults of Fort Jeanne d'Arc, one of the ancient bastions encircling the city of Metz in eastern France. The air hangs heavy with the chill of damp stone, mingled with the acrid tang of gunpowder residue and the faint metallic scent of fear-sweated uniforms. German artillerymen huddle in the dim flicker of lantern light, their breaths visible in the frigid gloom, fingers numb on the cold steel of their 88mm guns. Outside, the Moselle River whispers faintly through the fog-shrouded landscape, but then it begins, a distant rumble growing into a ceaseless roar as American shells whistle through the overcast sky, impacting with thunderous precision, shaking the earth like an unending storm. This moment, etched in the fortified heart of Metz, marked a pivotal fracture in the Wehrmacht's defiant stand against the Allied advance. As General George S. Patton's Third United States Army tightened its grip around the city, Metz stood as a formidable obstacle on the path to the Rhine and the German heartland. Captured by the Nazis in 1940, the city had been transformed into a labyrinth of 19th-century forts, reinforced with concrete pillboxes, minefields, and interlocking fields of fire, manned by elements of the 416th Infantry Division and Officer Candidate School units under General Heinrich Kittel. The battle for Metz, stretching from late September through mid-December 1944, was no swift clash, but a grueling siege, where American forces sought to breach this impregnable barrier. Its strategic value lay not merely in geography, but in symbolism. Holding Metz delayed Patton's drive, buying time for the Ardennes counteroffensive, the Battle of the Bulge, while draining American resources. Yet, as the weeks dragged on, the relentless American artillery barrage exposed the chasm between Nazi propaganda and battlefield reality, eroding the foundations of German resolve. The German artillerymen, seasoned in the brutal calculus of war, had entered this fray with a steely expectation forged in earlier triumphs. They anticipated a defense bolstered by superior engineering and unyielding discipline, where their own guns could repel the invaders with calculated efficiency. Whispers of the Führer's invincibility still echoed in their ranks, bolstered by tales of Stalingrad's endurance and the Ardennes' impending surprise. They envisioned short, sharp engagements where American advances would falter against the fort's thick walls, allowing counter-batteries to silence the enemy. But what they encountered was a deluge unlike any before, a torrent of shells that fell not in sporadic bursts, but as an unremitting rain, day after day, week after week. The initial barrages, commencing in earnest on November 8th, caught them off guard. By the next day, 20 American artillery battalions unleashed a coordinated fury on positions like Fort Königsmacker, shattering illusions of safety. The men expected intermittent fire, pauses to regroup, but instead faced a mechanical precision that denied respite, the sound of incoming shells, a high-pitched, unending whistle, becoming a harbinger of inexorable doom. Historical records paint a vivid picture of this onslaught's scale and devastation. The U.S. 90th Infantry Division, supported by the 5th and 95th Divisions, encircled Metz with a firepower arsenal that included 105mm and 155mm howitzers, capable of delivering thousands of rounds daily. In the first phase alone, from September 27th to October 13th, American guns expended over 10,000 shells in attempts to soften the outer defenses, though initial gains were slow due to flooding rains turning the ground to mud. By November, as the encirclement tightened, artillery duels intensified. On November 16th, a full day and night of shelling pummeled the Hackenberg fortifications, reducing concrete to rubble and forcing German retreats. Captured German documents reveal the toll. In Fort St. Julien, defenders endured ammunition-piercing rounds from tank destroyers, breaching doors after 30 high-explosive impacts, while white phosphorus shells, burning with infernal heat, were fired repeatedly at Fort St. Privat and Verdun to smoke out holdouts. One German report from the 1215th Volksgrenadier Regiment noted that supplies in Fort Plopperville dwindled to nothing under sustained bombardment, with airdropped resupplies failing due to the chaos of constant fire.
Data from U.S. Army after-action reviews quantify the barrage. The Third Army's artillery fired an average of 5,000 rounds per day during the peak weeks, totaling over 200,000 shells by December, far exceeding German capabilities limited by shortages to mere hundreds. Amid this factual barrage, documented quotes from German survivors underscored the emotional rift. Ober-GRT for Hans Müller, captured in a similar siege context, recalled in post-war interrogations, "The Americans' artillery is something else entirely. It is not the volume, it is the speed, it is the accuracy. One moment there is silence, the next the world explodes." In Metz, such sentiments resonated as shells rained down without warning, employing time-on-target techniques where multiple batteries synchronized arrivals within seconds. Lieutenant Friedrich Bauer, writing in his diary from a nearby position, "Before we could move, American shells were landing on our guns in less time than it took our observers to radio coordinates." The sound, that piercing whistle of approaching ordnance, recurred relentlessly, symbolizing the boundless abundance of American industry, a democracy's gift where factories churned out munitions in endless streams, unhindered by the rationing that plagued the Reich. Gefreiter Otto Schmidt, reflecting on a counterattack repelled near Kerling on November 11th, described, "In 30 seconds, my company ceased to exist. Survivors from 123 men numbered only 11. These accounts, preserved in U.S. intelligence files, reveal how the weeks of unceasing shellfire transformed fortified confidence into despair. As the bombardment persisted, the transformation in German perception deepened, shattering the ideological pillars of Nazi socialism. Initially buoyed by Hitler's promises of Wunderwaffen and unbreakable will, the artillerymen witnessed their own batteries silenced one by one. German guns, often horse-drawn and ammo-starved, could not match the motorized, radio-coordinated American response times of mere minutes. By mid-November, as the 90th Division expanded its bridgehead across the Moselle, prolonged shelling forced German units to paralysis. Movements to reinforce invited immediate destruction, leading to isolated pockets where morale cracked. Desertions spiked in Fort St. Privat on November 22nd, with soldiers preferring surrender to the certainty of burial under rubble. A captured officer from the 416th Division admitted during interrogation, "We were defeated by American artillery before the infantry arrived. We could not move, could not mass." This shift eroded faith in the regime's superiority. The endless whistle of shells, that symbolic sound echoing through the forts, represented not just metal and explosive, but the democratic ethos of abundance, where free societies mobilized resources without the tyranny's constraints, overwhelming the ideologically rigid Wehrmacht. Stabsfeldwebel Kurt Zimmermann, in a 1960 interview recalling similar experiences, confessed, "This was true terror, the weapon I feared most." The siege dragged on into December, with forts like Drient and Jeanne d'Arc holding out amid the whistle of shells that never abated, each barrage a reminder of American plentitude. Historical evidence from the U.S. Army's Center of Military History details how by November 19th the encirclement was complete, yet isolated garrisons endured weeks more under fire, their own artillery reduced to sporadic shots as supplies failed. Quotes from Oberleutnant Heinrich Müller in a January 1945 POW report captured the ideological fracture. "A single American company commanded more firepower than my entire regiment. We lost 400 men to 120 Americans." The sound of those shells, falling like democratic rain, nourished doubts. Men who once chanted Sieg Heil now whispered of defeat, their transformation complete as faith in the thousand-year Reich dissolved under the weight of industrial reality. In the epilogue of this siege, as the last forts capitulated on December 13, 1944, with over 10,000 Germans surrendering, the relentless whistle of American shells lingers as a poetic emblem of freedom's inexorable force. That sound, born of a nation's unbound productivity, echoed the larger truth. In the forge of democracy, abundance flows not from coercion but from liberty's wellspring, drowning the shadows of ideology in a torrent of hope and resolve, ensuring that tyranny, no matter how fortified, yields to the steady rain of progress.